Good morning, everyone. My name is Tracy Brown, and it is 9:15-ish a.m. Central Time, and that means it is time for the Sunday morning Science of Mind class. And today, after a long wait, no, not a wait, an exploration and a journey through some very important topics, we will actually begin looking into Chapter 2 in the Science of Mind textbook titled Mind, the Greatest Discovery. But before we do that, I do want to just give an overview for anyone who is checking in for the first time. Every Sunday, we dive into the textbook and we specifically read what Ernest Holmes wrote and dive into what does that mean and how can we use it in our lives. And if you know me, you know I'm really, really big on how do we actually apply it. And the other thing that I want to be sure to bring to your attention, especially if you are in the room or if you're online, but you're on your way or coming to the center physically later this morning or later this month, the artist of the month is our own Ryan Brown. And
hey
so,
now.
and so I invite you to take a few minutes and look at a few examples of Ryan's art, and his art will be displayed all month in the month of August. So let's dive in. Chapter 2 begins on page 71 in the textbook if you are following along. And at the beginning of every chapter, Ernest Holmes does something that I think is so fabulous, and it has been really helpful for me. He takes the subheadings and puts them all at the beginning of the chapter so you can see where are we going as we dive into this chapter. So the sub-chapters or the subtitles in this chapter are Nature Waits on Man's Self-Recognition, The First Great Discovery, The Greatest Discovery of All Time, Mind, Memory, Science, How Laws Are Discovered, The Science of Mind, Where Do We Get Our Mental Impressions, Reading Thought, Mental Laws, The Threefold Nature of God, and the Trinity of Being. Now that may not mean so much hearing them all together, but remember this chapter is about mind and what we have discovered or what metaphysicians discovered about mind and how we can apply it. This also is in following up the chapter we just left, which was in the beginning, God. So in the beginning, God, the nature of the universe, the nature of spiritual reality, and now we begin to dive into with chapter 2, mind. So, quoting. Nature waits on man's self-recognition. Nothing is more important than that humanity, as it now appears, is the result of evolution. But in order to evolve, humanity has had to have a principle from which to unfold. Since humanity or human is intelligent, humanity must have evolved from an intelligent cause. So I'm just taking a breath, take that in. Nothing is more apparent than there has been some evolution and that this evolution must have begun from an intelligent source. Next paragraph. In studying the order of man's evolution, it seems certain that it was necessary from the time that he was brought to a point of self-choice that he be left alone to discover his true nature. If humanity is endowed with the attributes of self-choice and free will, they must be allowed to make this great discovery for themselves. Even God could not make a mechanical individual. Consider any of nature's forces. They must have existed always. But so far as humanity is concerned, these forces exist to be used only after they have discovered them and learned how to make use of them. Ernest Holmes goes on to add a specific example. Electricity was a reality in the universe when Moses led the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. But neither Moses nor any of his followers knew anything about it. This is true of all natural laws. They have always existed, but only when understood may they be used. In this way, life waits upon our discovery of natural laws, our discovery of ourselves, and our discovery of our relationship to the great whole. The principle of science is invisible, theoretical, as is our idea of spirit. No one has seen God. No one has seen capital L life. What we have seen is the manifestation of life. No one has seen intelligence. We experience it. No one has ever seen causation. We see what it does. We deal with its effects. We do not see beauty. The artist feels beauty and depicts it as best they can. And the result of this effort is what we call the beautiful. The mathematician solves a problem, but the problem is not the principle of mathematics. The solution of the problem is the result or effect of the application of the principle of mathematics. We do not see life, we experience living. Causation is invisible. Okay. So that is the introductory part of this chapter. The chapter is Mind, the Greatest Discovery. In this chapter, we are exploring and discovering mind, the mental, the process, and we begin with nature waits on man's self-recognition. Ernest Holmes does a beautiful job in this entry subchapter, reminding us that everything is and exists, but until we understand it, until we recognize it and understand it, we don't necessarily have a way to use it, because we don't know what it is. And he also, in the last part of this subsection, reminds us that infinite intelligence, that life itself, the creator, the source, whatever language works for you, it's invisible. What we see and feel and experience, we experience the effect of it. We experience the use of it, but we are not experiencing or seeing the raw, because it's not matter. So it's like, even how do you talk about it? It's invisible. It is something we can't touch, taste, we can't access with our five senses. And it's so vast, But when we are using it, when we are living in alignment with the base spiritual principles, the universal principles, then, I see this pattern. Oh, now this is how I could apply this pattern. I can create electricity. Or now that we know about electricity, I can use electricity. But you can't see electricity. Or at least I should say, I can't see electricity. I don't know. Maybe there are some people in the room or in the room virtually that will say, I saw electricity. Well, even if we see a spark, right? We're not seeing electricity. We're seeing the result of electricity interacting with some static or with something that is creating a physical thing that we have named a spark. So in thinking about nature waits on man's self-recognition, Ernest Holmes puts that together in a way that reminds us that I always pause before I say this because I know that people are at all different places on the continuum. So when we say spirit and I are one, or when we say I am a physical emanation of, or a physical expression of the one, of God, of spirit, of the universal whole, but here I am in physical form, all of the attributes of God or spirit have been implanted in me, and I get to use them in a unique way. We say that, and for some people that's really confusing, but I need to make that connection here because sometimes, and this has happened a few times in classes where someone will ask me, well, Tracy, if God and I are one, and I am basically a physical representation of God, then why don't I know all of this stuff? And why can't I just, think it and it appears immediately? And sometimes we actually can't do that. But here's the deal. The universal presence of the infinite nature of life itself is everywhere present. But as a human being, I have been created with free will and choice. And so if I don't know the principles of math, I can't use them. And so there is a line here in the very beginning that we want to make sure we don't skip over. If, this is on page 71 in the second paragraph, it was necessary that man be left alone to discover his true nature. If humanity is endowed with the attributes of self-choice and free will, then the human being must be allowed to make this discovery for themselves. Even God could not make a mechanical individual. So even though it exists, and even though each one of us has the nature of God, the nature of spirit as our foundational core nature, in our human state, we have to discover it. Discover it. Understand it. Believe it, and then use it. There is nothing in the pattern of life that requires us to acknowledge and use the nature of life itself. We can fight it, we can do all kinds of things that are countering it, and many of us do. We spend our life making choices that are not in line with attracting the good or manifesting the good. And that is the discovery process. So don't beat yourself up when you find yourself like, oh, I'm in this mess. And it's a mess I created because of my choices. Like, sit up straight, put your shoulders back, and say, I am one of the best discoverers of the universe. I am exploring life. And now that I have done all these things and gotten myself here, I'm gonna try something different for the next 6 months. And a year from now, I'm gonna go in a different direction. And let's see where that takes me. And that is why you rarely will find us beating you up, beating people up about where they are in life. It's like, okay, it's just a reflection of what choices or what you were thinking or believing up until now. But the good news is right now, you get to think something new, you get to do something new, you get to explore in whatever way you now set the intention. So because we have seen that work in our own lives and in the collective experience, and because we know that's how it works, then it becomes really important for us to remember that nature waits on humanity's self-recognition. We must recognize that we are all that. We are. Each one of us individually and all of us collectively. So that's how Ernest Holmes begins to get into this chapter on mind, the greatest discovery. And and I'm just looking ahead because there's so much good stuff in here to really understand mind. But I'm going to stop right there, at least for now. Does this make sense? How have you seen it in your life? How have you experienced that nature waits on your own self-recognition and that the nature of life is invisible? Like we cannot see causation. We cannot see the infinite intelligence, but we use it once we recognize it. So I'm curious about your comments, your questions, and our artist of the month, Ryan Brown, is going to do double duty and give you some instructions.
Here I am doing double duty, everybody. I'm being an artist and a commentor. Welcome, and I appreciate everybody here in the room and all of those folks who are joining us all over the globe online. We say thank you for being in community today with us. And as Tracy was mentioning, this is an interactive discussion. If your brain hasn't already been blown away by now, we want to hear what your thoughts are. And so for the folks here in the room, if you're new, we just want to remind you, go ahead and raise your hand. And myself or the iconic Richard here to my right will hand you a microphone and we'll ask you to have your question or comment into the room. And for the folks who are joining us online via Zoom, you can always hit the raise your hand icon located down below or put your question inside of the comments and I can bring it into the room. And the same goes true for those who are on Facebook. We'd love to hear from you, so please feel free to raise your hand. No, I'm just kidding. Can you imagine it? Some people right now are raising their hand. Put your comments inside of the chat field, and I'll bring those into the room. I see that we do have a person here on Zoom, so I'm going to go ahead and ask Dr. Donnell to unmute yourself, and let's join the conversation.
Hey, good morning, you all.
Good morning.
Can you all hear me?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, so I'm always thrilled by this idea of the power that we have when we come into the realization that we are a thinking being. And the realization of what that means as we go along this journey of life. Um, life, you start to see how destructive life is in times where you're fully unaware that you are causing a lot of the things that occur into your life. You almost do kind of beat yourself up. And I was thinking about what you were saying, but it made me think about this time when a person plays a prank on you and you get distraught and you're frustrated, but then you realize they're just playing. And so you can lighten up a little bit and you can laugh at the experience and realize that the way that I view things really does impact my life. And then you also think about the way your relationship with life. And you don't see life as this invisible being, but you see it as an aspect of who you are beyond, who you are. And I really like this point when it talks about us coming into the experience about ourselves. And it made me think about the Bible when God asked Abraham to leave all that he knew and his land and his family. But that part of leaving led him into the promises of God, where he talks about him being the father of all of civilization. And it made me think about what Ernest Holmes is saying, and is when we leave away from everything and we come to our own individual aspect of who we are, or I think Young refers to it as individuation, but we come to that aspect of knowingness in our own choice and free will, and our ability to understand what that means in a relationship and the course of our own evolution as well. Kind of also goes in parallel with creation and how God creates. So that's just what I wanted to share.
Thank you, Dr. Donnell. And I love the way that you are weaving several different aspects together, and different philosophies as well, because our lives are complex and our human experience is complex. So I do want to highlight a couple of things that you shared. One, the idea of when we're engaging with someone else who's human and they're playing a prank but we don't know it, and we're getting angry or frustrated or shocked or confused, and then we realize, oh, it's a prank, it's not real, like this isn't really what's happening. I want to invite all of us to remember that when we start beating ourselves up. It's like we're playing a prank on ourselves, like fooling or trying to fool the truth of us, the wholeness that is our true nature. And then all of a sudden our wholeness goes, oh, wait a minute. Oh yeah, I know it took you 5 years to figure it out, but now you got it. And then you can kind of laugh at yourself and go to the next thing, right? So I loved that. It works when we're thinking about how other people engage with us, but also how we engage with ourselves. What Science of Mind teaches is that we live our lives going from condition to condition to condition to condition, that is our life experience. Now, please hear me. When I say we go from condition to condition to condition to condition, I am not saying those conditions are hard or difficult or challenging. So I am experiencing a condition right now this morning of being in a fabulous community, engaging in a great conversation, but it's not permanent. It is a condition, 9:15 to 10, right? 10:30 to 11:30-ish for the celebration service. At 5 p.m. this afternoon, I'll be in a different condition. right? So when we say we go from condition to condition, we're not saying we go from bad thing to bad thing to bad thing. We're saying we go from one experience into another experience into another experience. We are the ones who then get into the labels: good, bad, scary, hopeful, hopeless. Those are humanly ascribed labels. But the condition is a neutral term. So that's what we teach, is that we, by our thoughts, our choices, and our actions, we are co-creating, or we are influencing what we experience in our humanity. And we, in fact, as this chapter will lead us into, we are using universal mind. We are tapping into the universal, unlimited, infinite options of universal mind in order to craft, shape, and change our experience. So we're never a victim. We are never a victim of what's happening, because we have choice and free will. Can we have a microphone over here to my left?
Absolutely. And go ahead and speak your name into the room before your question.
Okay, I'm Kate. So comment. What I found interesting about this section is the comparison between what we view as science, right? Electricity and spirituality. And what they have in common is that they are both true all of the time, whether we are aware of them or not, but we can't use them for our benefit, as you said, until we become aware. I was thinking a lot about electricity because that's what they talked about. But then I started thinking about gravity. Gravity has always been around. But now we can use gravity to explore space, slingshotting around planets. And so we've been creating our lives for our whole lives, but we're doing it unconsciously, and so it feels like we're not in control. But when you realize you are in control, you can do so many more amazing things.
Yes, or I love that, Kate. You are like, you just captured that perfectly. And in the book, Ernest Holmes refers to the principle of mathematics also. And one of the examples that we like to use a lot with that is, one of my actually two of my really good friends have 5-year-olds. Mathematics, let's say even simple mathematics like multiplication and division, it exists. I have learned to use it. I integrate it with no thought, but I don't expect the 5-year-old to know how to divide 144 by 12 and get an answer. I mean, I'm sure there are some 5-year-olds who can do that, but I don't expect a 5-year-old to have learned, understood, and be ready to apply division or multiplication. It doesn't mean that division or multiplication doesn't exist, because it does. It just means that he hasn't learned to use it yet. He doesn't even really know it exists, even though people all around him are making decisions like what to buy and how to buy it, and using the principles of mathematics. So a lot of times, even as an adult, I've been able to go, oh, yeah, I screwed that up because I didn't understand how it works. And maybe I had to screw that up in order to see the negative or the outcome that doesn't work, to realize, oh, there's a different way I'm supposed to be combining these aspects. And in that sense, I can acknowledge, I don't ignore that I made some choices that didn't work the way I wanted them to, but I don't have to get stuck there. I can focus on how do I make different choices? What do I need to learn? Who can I learn from? Who can I model after? Who can I ask questions to? Because I'm going for this different outcome. So I'm future focused and moving toward that rather than past focused and getting pulled back into it. So another comment online?
Yes, I had a question that came in.
Ooh, question.
And it follows along the lines of this topic, so it's really good. It says, how does our beliefs affect our ability to use our mind to manifest? If I believe I am skinny, it improves my self-confidence, but it doesn't necessarily change my body.
Ooh, I love this. I love this, and that's a fun example. So if I believe I'm skinny, if I really believe it, I'm going to make choices that are in alignment with that, and I probably will see some changes in my body, but that's the connection. I can tell you what you really believe. If I were to follow you around for 7 to 10 days with a hidden camera, I know you're all little. Okay, let me clarify that. If I were to follow you around in your waking hours when you're fully dressed with a hidden camera, right, tracking and recording what you say, what you do, who you engage with, and how you engage with them, what you do when no one else is around. I can tell you what you really believe. Because a lot of times what we say we believe is not what we really believe. We say what we think we should believe. But our actions reflect what we really believe about ourselves, about our world, the world we live in, etc. So the way that our beliefs, okay, let me rewind that. Let me give you a little kind of visual 5-step thing that I hope will help. So we have thoughts and feelings, and in metaphysics and in New Thought, of course, you hear the phrase, change your thinking, change your life. And so a lot of times we think it's just our thinking, that what we think then drives the feelings. But in our human experience, just as often, we have feelings that are reflecting subconscious thoughts that we're not we're not really aware of from the way we were raised or whatever. So we feel a certain way and then we think about what that means. So thoughts and feelings, let's put them on the same plane, like step 1. Our thoughts and feelings drive our beliefs. What we believe about life, what we believe about ourselves is the culmination of those thoughts and feelings. Our beliefs then drive our behavior. And our beliefs are mostly invisible. We don't walk around saying, I believe in this, I believe this, I believe that, I don't believe that. No, we don't usually do that. But what we believe drives our behavior. What we truly believe drives our behavior. And then our behavior that we repeat over and over and over again becomes our habits. And it is our habits, our habitual ways of being that create our life, our experience. So when we say change your thinking, change your life, we really are engaging with thoughts, feelings, beliefs, behaviors, habits that altogether create an experience for us. So how is this connected with universal mind, right? Universal mind is the infinite possibility, infinite number of choices, combinations, all of the ingredients that make up life, all of life. How we are impacting that is we're really choosing and using those parts of the infinite or universal mind that match our thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and behaviors. We are not tapping into all of mind, but we then can use mind. Mind is supporting, is responding to that which we place the order for.
I am skinny.
Yes.
It looks like we want to read a little bit more in the chapter.
Well, no, we've got some comments in the room.
My apologies here.
While you're paying attention to online, I'm paying attention to these two corners of the room. And say your name.
This is Jerry, and back to the part where man has to discover his own true nature. Yes, that is very familiar with me because it mirrors what I experience at work in a different context. Because let's say a lot of times I'm a lead technician on fixing the problem, and I could be working with people who have decades of experience, right? But being that I'm the lead technician for the problem, I so often just need them to quit trying to help, be quiet, and let me discover for myself, okay, this is the issue. Let's try this. So that may be a theme of human beings having the opportunity to discover things yourself. But I'm also saying I also have learned to do that for other people. You know, I can, like, if I ask another expert their opinion, I've gotten good at just being quiet myself and letting them do their own thing. That was my comment.
I love that. So this idea of self-discovery is hardwired into the human nature, the nature of humanity, and we do use it not only, actually most of us, many of us use it more in our day-to-day lives than we do in exploring and expanding our spirituality, right? Because we're kind of socialized to problem solve and to ask questions and to get information, but we often have not been raised to do that around our spirituality and our religion and how to actually apply it. The majority of people grow up being exposed to this is the way that you should think about religion or faith or your spiritual beliefs, and these are the things you are supposed to do, and it's prescribed rather than explored. But in metaphysics and in New Thought, there's a big emphasis on, wait a minute, you know, you are unique. And so you have to look at the collective, and you are also responsible for your individual answer and action. So,
yes, I wanted to.
And your name is?
My name is Carmen. I wanted to, you had made a comment earlier, how we have to keep on doing the work to see the outcome. And what I've experienced, for speaking for myself, is that when I first started my spiritual journey, I was at a point where I had that victim mentality of I blame for everything. Somebody's doing something to me, or I did something, and it was just like really hard talk on myself and just feeling really bad. And then like moving and doing my work, it shifted to that. Okay, so it shifted to, it was this white line that I had to meet and to finish so I can get rid of all this old stuff that I done created in my life. So this finish line here, for me to get there, like a race to get there, so I can be this perfect person in my head. And then I realized that line keeps on moving out, and I see that it's not a line. It's not a line there, and that I realize that I'm not perfect, but I'm still worthy at this time, even though those mistakes, how you were saying, how hold your shoulders up. And I'm at a point now, recently, I'm at a point to where it's like I'm not perfect, and I may not ever be perfect, but I know I'm still worthy of all my blessings. And so, yeah, and another thing I was thinking also too is that I work out at the gym, and I always use this to keep me on track. Is, formation, you start off, the formation is incorrect. You have to build muscle. You got to keep at it to see the results. And working out is not an instant gratification. You got to put into it to get whatever you're trying to accomplish. And that's one thing I've learned, is that even with my spiritual journey, is that you still have to put in. You still have to put in, because you go to the gym once out the week, you're really not going to see anything. If you go and be consistent and dedicated, then you will see the results and everything. And that's what I've experienced, is doing the work. Keep doing the work. So
doing the work, keep doing the work, but love doing the work. Like when we say that, there's this subtle, not necessarily for you, but in general, there's this subtle undercurrent of, we got to do the work. It's so hard. Right? But no, it's like we call it spiritual practice, because we are always practicing to get to our next thing, or to be the best person we can be, or to experience a life we love. It's the practice so that when things are happening, we can understand that all that practice prepared us to navigate whatever drama is happening right now. And perfect, actually, I would invite you to consider, now that you are where you are and you're no longer as stuck in the past, and I'm a victim to that, I would invite you to consider, now I see the perfection that I am being. Because the perfection is the constant exploration. Whereas in the past, as you described it, perfect meant I achieved this goal and I could check it off and I got 100%, like an exam at the end of the school year. But when we are living our perfect life, it is constantly expanding and evolving. So when I achieve an intention, or as we're going to talk about in the celebration service, when I manifest the miracle, yes, I can celebrate that. But my life doesn't stop there. So what do I want next? Where am I moving toward? Oh, great. This is great. And now I'm ready and prepared to do the next thing. And that actually is being and living from the perfection of spirit. So play with that a little bit. So that's, the time just goes so fast. That is our time this week, this whole month. We will be looking and going deeper into in chapter 2 here in the class, and join us in the celebration service in person or online, where the theme this month is manifesting miracles. And I hope that you are able to manifest more miracles in your life. Thanks so much, everybody. Yes.